Hi, welcome to the Commercial Gas Engineer channel. This is part 6 of my first sites as a commercial gas engineer. So this is in about 2019 in March. I had my commercial tickets for about a year at this point. I couldn't get any commercial experience at first. When I first started out in 2018 in March, I was still doing a bit of domestic work. But then I did get my break where someone was willing to pay me more as a commercial engineer than a domestic engineer. And then I took that and was working for a company in the winter of 2018. And then this is 2019 now. I was starting to get some more experience under my belt, and I was cleaning out a Magna Clean on a system. I'm sure you've seen ones in worse condition than this. In this particular site, supposed to be cleaning the strainer, but what happened is I had to book up a new line strainer, and it was difficult to get the size of it. I remember struggling to get the size on this one. The PA number is there, the pressure nominal number, but trying to get the DN number I think was a struggle. And I recall ordering the wrong size on this one. Possibly if I tried to get back more of the lagging off, I could have got the size of this one here. I could have got the size further back of the pipework or made use of some calipers. On this particular site, I recall that the contactor was tripping. I think there was two gas-fired water heaters. I recall when both of them would come on, it would be tripping. I don't know if it was going out on overcurrent or what it was tripping, but I remember changing the contactors, and that after changing the contactors, the problem was solved. So here's the new contactor that I was about to put in place. I couldn't get the exact same model as what they had before. The model before was a Lovato, so considering that I'm not a BMS engineer or an electrician, at the time this was quite difficult because you don't know exactly what you're doing and if it's going to work, but it did work out in the end. Still the process of me wiring it up still. So I believe I got it in situ and all was well. So these are the units that it was serving: two Lochinvar gas-fired water heaters. So you could only have one on at a time, otherwise when two would come on, it would trip. So that seemed to solve the problem. It looked as though the contactor was faulty. In this particular site, I remember there being I believe a care home, and there was some leaks on the 15mm ball fix valve, and I believe that there was some LXX used to just slow it down, because I think the fear was to stop the services at the care home and drain it down on the spot, and then being without services for several hours. In what time of year was it? In March, so it was still kind of cold, and I don't think they wanted that. But in the end, I think that's what it came down to. It was planned, and then had to go back and drain the system down. I think this was on the return pipe, on the hot water return. Here we go, another picture. So I had a bucket down there catching some water, and this is another view of it, more pipe work. So this was another site. I think this was an oil forced draft burner, and I recall having to make some adjustment on the combustion and so on this. I reckon this was my first experience with an oil burner, and I recall making some calls to Offtech and trying to get some guidance on it, and also a few other engineers trying to get guidance on how to service them properly. It's a unit, an EOGB X400 Panda 120. This was another unit, but with a manifold system. And this is it from the distance. So you've got the different zones here. And here I am trying to free up some of the valves. There was some noise clearly coming from these valves. And this is looking down from the valve. So it looks as though I was probably called out to this for noise rather than no heat. I think there was noise on the system. And here we are in another plant room. Yeah, so I was here doing some servicing. Saw that the fan was out. Reckon here I was about to do some changes on the mixers in a care home because they had some faulty temperatures on a few of the bedrooms, and obviously you don't want anyone getting scolded in a care home. So I believe this was probably a picture before changing thermostatic mixer valves. We have 3 boilers here, 2 ideals, and then I think an older ideal. I recall going to this site several times. I think this boiler on the right gave me a nightmare. I recall changing the air pressure switch. I recall cleaning up the hoses, cutting the hoses down, cleaning them out. I recall taking out the burner and washing it down, and it was quite a state. And this boiler still wanted to come up with a fault. So never got to the bottom of this one. This looks like there was a problem in the kitchen with the gas guard and they couldn't get any gas. So yep, this is the gas guard that you find in the kitchen. One of the wires had popped out, the safety knockoff in the kitchen. Yes, this was the culprit. This safety knockoff, you wouldn't believe it, but you look underneath it and one of the wires had popped out. So this is me cutting in the valve on the secondary return. I believe that this was the valve that I put in, lever handle valve. Yes. In this particular plant room, I think was changing I think this was a Strebel or a boiler, something to that effect. Yeah, Strebel. I was changing the main heat exchanger in a roof space. Okay, I reckon at this site I had another gas guard supply fault. I believe I had at this one. So I was trying to trace it. First thing I checked was pulled off the safety knockoff to have a look. So I'm checking to see why it's not working. I probably sent this video to someone to assist me. Just testing the system. So I was carrying out some repairs. So I was trying my best to find the problem with this one. So in the cupboard down here, I don't know if you can see clearly, I was in a cupboard. I was down there was where a solenoid was. So in the kitchen, this one did take ages to find. I got a colleague who is quite electrically competent at the time to come and help. So I was checking air pressure switches to see if they were making, supplying extract fans, checking voltage. In the end, it was the fuse for the gas solenoid. And in the end, it was the fuse, but this took hours. This took hours to figure out. I was there. Then I got a colleague who was highly competent in wiring and BMS work and etc. He came and he was there for several hours. And we got to the bottom of it. I think why this one got mistaken is because it didn't look as though it was the fuse for the solenoid. The solenoid was on the other side of the wall, the gas solenoid, and then on this side. So that's why I wrote on it quite clearly with a marker pen saying gas solenoid valve here, because it looked as though it was for the macerator or something else to that effect. It didn't look as though it was for the gas solenoid. This looks as though there was some sort of temporary fix carried out on a bit of pipe. You can see a bit of rubber there. So here you have it. The temporary repair is there, and then it was replaced by myself there. So we're in April now, and there was a call out, and then it so happens that the flood was coming from one of the toilets in the building. Sometimes you're looking around a building for ages looking for a leak, and you're looking, and then you find that it's coming from a toilet, and it can take a lot of investigation, but from isolated that and then got the maintenance man to sort it out. Or maybe it looks as though I ended up sorting it out in the end. I recall this site. There were 4 pumps behind the boilers, and I recall that this site there kept being a problem with some tripping taking place. Something was tripping on the breakers, I think the boilers or something like that. It was staying on for a while and then tripping. That's what I recall was happening at this site. So these are the boilers, Pottertons. I don't recall working on these again. I remember this particular site, there was just some sort of domestic boilers in a commercial sort of setting, and the elbow coming out the heat exchanger was leaking. I think I managed to source the part far away from where I was, and where I was far as it is. I managed to change the part quite quickly. So here we have it. This is during the repair on the Worcester. This looks like I was changing the typical pressure switch on a Valent. And this looks like I was investigating a leak underneath a bank of idle modules. These are the boilers. There was a leak underneath, and I was trying to get to the bottom of where it was leaking from. It wasn't easy. I do believe that the leak sorted itself out after time, especially after things heat up. Sometimes leaks can just resolve themselves. I recall coming to this site and there being some problems here. You've got some yellow burners down there attached to these boilers. I recall them having an issue and getting to the bottom of the issue. So it looks as though there was expansion vessels that were leaking from the Schrader valves. What have we here? Okay, you can see there's a flame inside there. Some burn marks on this boiler. Temperature's rising. Oh, another 4-shaft burner on. I believe I went here and they had no heating, no hot water. And this looks like it is my proof of getting the system going. And then we have our temperature rise there at this same site. And then again, an even greater temperature rise. Okay, at this site, I think I was just about to change some pipe work above and below on the flow and return. I believe this was possibly a large hotel where a lot of work needs to be done. Pipe work that was leaking needed renewing. There's your gas meter over there, and you had your buffer vessel there, and plates, your plate to plates either side. And this is the pipe work that was being renewed. Here we have it, installing new valves. Not easy draining down a large hotel. Just ensuring that everything's good afterwards. Temperatures back up, and this looked like some pipe work that needed changing. Definitely needed changing. Sometimes you can clean these up as good as new, but you got to be careful. And then this is the pipe that needed to be changed. Here we have it. I can't remember what size this was, but it wasn't tiny. Okay, I'll continue in my next one. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, bye bye bye.